First of all, it's nice to have you here. That's very loud. So I'm not used to speaking over a handheld microphone, so let me just get used to that. Welcome around the fire, everyone. It's a bit of a different chat around the fire. It's our first time we're talking around a fire with you here on a Saturday night. Certainly not my first time around a fire on a Saturday night. I think I've spent probably more Saturday evenings around a fire than not. And of course, a big pleasure to introduce my father. It's really a big pleasure to have you with everyone else. They've heard about you many times before. And I thought about it briefly on the drive, how to do an introduction. It's the easiest thing and the hardest thing in the world, maybe at the same time. But maybe to start with the fire. The man that taught me how to make fire was my father from very young. And ultimately the love and the passion I have for the bush started and still is part of something we share. So first, it's just a big pleasure to have you here. It was a surprise yesterday afternoon, got a phone call, and I knew my dad was in South Africa, but I didn't know he was going to be around here. And he said, Marinda and myself are here, we're on our way down to Kruger. We've got to go do one or two things there, and then maybe we can see you. And yesterday afternoon he said, awesome, they're going to head up here. And they arrived here during the course of the drive. I'm going to let my dad speak just now. I just want to do a quick introduction. I looked through some of the questions. Thank you so much for all the questions that came through. It's still a bit weird for me talking into this thing around a fire, but quite a few questions. We'll touch on one or two of those just now, and we'll have a chat. But also asking what my father does and a bit of background, and rather than having him tell you, because I don't think he'd be as comfortable maybe as I would, just a quick background. Moved up to Namibia when I was very young, well, before I was born actually, for various reasons, actually to do his residency year up there, and fell in love with Namibia and the freedom and the space of the country, I think. And that's where I grew up. And actually, Sabi Sands Game Reserve, we might speak about it a bit later, depending on how the chat goes around the fire. My very, very early days as an introduction into guiding was actually in this reserve. My father was working further south. He was doing clinics for some of the game reserves, the lodges, and also for some of the villages outside. So my father's a doctor, medical doctor, and has worked in various parts of Africa and also various parts of the world. He's worked in Canada, where many of you are from. And he's also worked in Australia, on cruise lines all around, and been in Namibia now for quite a while with his lovely wife and very good friend of mine, Marinda. And yeah, it's awesome to have both of you here. Marinda sitting behind the camera. She decided to rather stay that side. My father's going to join us this side. He'll speak just now. He does speak. It's just me that's talking a lot at the moment. And Simon's behind the camera, and Herman in the live control center, just so you know who's all here. And yeah, after I've talked too much already, this is my father.
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's an amazing pleasure for me to be with Pieter especially, and you people. He told me a lot about this, and the first time I see it actually, and I've been in the operational rooms where I saw some of the interaction on the internet, and it amazed me the way that you feel like family, friends, very good friends. Actually, it makes me a little bit jealous to see some of the questions, but for me, I'm very proud and very happy to be here, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. The Kruger Park is one of my favorites. Sabi Sand is one of it, but to be with Pieter is probably on top of it, the best thing I can be. So, thank you, Pieter. No, and yeah, I must say he's a talker. I've never taught him anything like that. He's been like that. Probably got it from his mother, I'm not sure. But I will try my best to join him here and make it for him. This is the only reason I'm doing it, because he asked me.
Yeah, it was a very sudden thing. I just said, do you mind being live in front of a camera and talking to a bunch of people around the world? But I also assured my dad that a big part of this, and this is something we'll actually talk about over the next day that him and Marinda are visiting, is that you guys aren't just people, especially those of you that are joining us still for this conversation. I know that many of you know me very well. I know many of you quite well. And therefore, I told my dad very quickly in a few minutes before we got on here that he can feel really at home.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I think just to quickly sort of give it a bit of structure before we, there's so many things I'm suddenly thinking of. I really have sat probably with my dad around fires since I was very young, since before I can remember, and I don't think I've sat around more fires with anyone else, yeah, for sure, with anyone else than my father. So it's a very special place for us. A couple of the questions came through. Thank you so much for sending those through. It really does mean quite a bit. Marinda was going to help us with a couple of those. The first is me talking so much, and I think I'm talking a bit more than usual. It's like my dad.
Getting your work.
Yeah, working at the moment. It's tough. Someone's got to do it. But it's also it's such a privilege for me. It really is fantastic. My dad's one of my best friends, and so to be chatting here is something that makes me maybe just a little bit nervous in a nice way, in an excited way. Me talking so much to try and stop it. One of the questions have always been this inquisitive. And I mean, I know the answer to it, but we thought we'll get your answer on it. And maybe in the same time, one of the other things is people are asking if there were any hairy moments with me and animals. I know we had a couple of elephants in Namibia a few years ago that were swimming through the river, and I was photographing them. My dad's eyes were a bit bigger than usual. But yeah, maybe a story from when I was younger.
Yeah, let's start with the last one. A lot of things comes to mind, but one of the things which is incidents that really was something that I will always, as long as I've got a mind and life in me, will remember, which I really appreciate a lot. I was working as a very young doctor in Rundu, which is right on the border with Angola, up north in Namibia. For you that know the geography a little bit, it's on the panhandle of Namibia going inland. He was 3 years old, and I went with a guy who was a nature conservation senior person to a place with the name of Koudum. It's a Bushman name, and it's a totally pristine area. There was hardly roads, there was nothing else than 2 roads for 4-wheel drive cars. It was really for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers and very thick bush. And we were sleeping next to a pan, like a round one, like a saucer, with the name of Leeuwpan, which means, directly translated as lion pan. And there was a lot of lions in the vicinity. Just a little bit of water in the center, and we were sleeping right on the side. We've been there with a huge 4-wheel drive car. Ford F-250. It was amazing cars. I remember a lot of stories about them. But
can I interrupt quickly just for a second, just about Koudum, because I went back there a couple of years ago, and I've mentioned it a few times as well. So it's just a reserve that we've spoken about. Lots of elephants as well, so I'd enjoy that. And like my dad says, lots of lions.
Lions and sable antelopes and roan antelopes, which is a
wild dog still.
Yeah, was still wild dog. So it's really in the outback. We were camping with the bushes behind us, the bucky or the what do you call it? Ute. That's how I worked in Western Australia for a year, but this is what it is. And we made a bush here and a bush in the back, and the pan was in the front. And the water's edge was about 80 meters from where we camped. We had a fire there going, and what we used to do, if you're in rough country like that, you make a fire, a small fire with a nice piece of wood in between about this size, which will glow and then light the next fire. So you've got fires 2 or 3 depending on how long you anticipate to stay, which will light 2 or 3 fires right through the night. This one will burn out and then this one will start in 3 or 4 hours later on. And the guy had a little Jack Russell. I always say Jack Daniels, I mean Jack Russell's doggy with him, and I heard him the night barking, not growling more, and Pieter was 3 years old. His mother was very upset that I took him along. And he waked me up and said, Papa. I said, yeah, Pieter, what is it? Papa, is that not a lion?
Sê maar gaan Afrikaans ook asseblief. Okay. Moet ek jou wakker gemaak. Yeah. We'll translate just now.
Papa, is that nie 'n leeu daai nie? Is that nie 'n leeu nie? And it was full moon, I must add that. And I said, no man, there's no lions here, don't worry, go back to sleep. And I heard the dog again, and he said, Papa, there's a leeu. Father, that's a lion. And I went onto my elbows on the other side, which was about 150 meters from us. There was this lioness sitting on her haunches. And he wasn't scared, he knew exactly what it was. And this is what I will remember. And I think that probably was, if I think back, his first love for nature. This is where it all started. I would like to think so.
Yeah, I definitely think so.